You know what's interesting? There's a moment that happens between two people, usually when neither of them is expecting it, when her hand moves to her collarbone or she tucks something behind her ear, and in that tiny gesture, there's a whole conversation happening. The kind of conversation that doesn't need words. But here's the thing, most guys never understand. While you're sitting there wondering if she actually likes you, she's already answered the question 100 times over. Her body's been talking the entire time. You just haven't learned the language yet. Think about it. How many times have you been with a woman and felt like something was being communicated, but you couldn't quite put your finger on what? Maybe it was the way she held your gaze a millisecond longer than necessary. Maybe it was how she suddenly became very interested in the way her hands looked, or how her whole demeanor shifted when you walked into the room. These aren't accidents. These aren't random nervous habits. They're her subconscious mind expressing things her conscious mind isn't quite ready to say out loud yet. The fascinating thing about human attraction, especially for women in the mature years, is that it's deeply rooted in these small, often overlooked physical tells. Not the big obvious stuff like smiling or laughing. Everyone does that. I'm talking about the subtle movements, the micro behaviors that reveal what's actually happening beneath the surface. The difference between interest and genuine connection, between politeness and real attraction. What we're going to explore today is something that sits at the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and just plain human nature. It's about recognizing what's really happening when she touches certain parts of herself around you. And I'm not talking about anything inappropriate here. I'm talking about understanding the honest, unfiltered way her body communicates when her mind is caught up in your presence. Let's start with something you've probably seen 100 times but never really understood. Her clothing. Not in the way you might think. You know that moment when someone adjusts their shirt collar, smooths down their sweater, or tugs at their sleeve even though nothing's actually out of place? There's a reason that happens, and it's tied directly to her level of self-awareness around you. When a woman becomes conscious of your presence at a deeper level, her awareness of her own body increases dramatically. Suddenly, she's more aware of what she's wearing, how it fits, whether it looks good. And that awareness doesn't just stay in her head. It travels down to her hands. So she smooths, she adjusts, she fixes things that don't really need fixing. It's not vanity necessarily. It's her way of unconsciously trying to present herself as more put together, more attractive, more intentional. Her hands are essentially saying, I notice that you're noticing me, and I want to make sure I'm worth noticing. Now, here's something that's important to understand. This behavior intensifies when there's uncertainty. If she knows for certain that you're completely uninterested, she won't do it as much. But if there's even a hint of possibility in her mind, that's when the clothing adjustments happen. That's when she becomes hyper-aware of every seam, every wrinkle. It's a sign that your potential attention matters to her. The neck is different entirely. The neck is one of those areas that psychology considers a genuine vulnerability indicator. When someone touches their neck, brushes their fingers along their throat, or focuses attention there, they're essentially saying something without words. In body language science, the neck area is connected to arousal, nervousness, and openness. And here's what's important. The neck is almost never a place people unconsciously touch unless something inside them is activated. When you're with her and she suddenly reaches up and traces a finger along her collarbone, or she adjusts the neckline of her shirt, or she just gently strokes that area, something has triggered in her. It could be nervousness. It could be arousal. It could be a mix of both. But one way or another, you've affected her at a physiological level. Her nervous system has responded to your presence. What's really fascinating is that when women touch this area, they're often not even conscious. They're doing it. It's completely instinctive. And that's what makes it so telling. It's not a calculated move. It's not her trying to manipulate or attract. It's her body's honest reaction to something you've said, something you've done, or just something about the energy you bring into her space. Think about the last time you were with a woman you were genuinely drawn to. You probably noticed that your own nervous system changed. Maybe your breathing shifted. Maybe you found yourself standing differently. Well, she's experiencing something similar. And the neck touch is often where that shows up most visibly. Now, let's talk about something that happens when she's sitting down. Something most guys completely miss. The way she relates to her own legs and thighs when you're nearby. This is subtle, but it's significant. She might cross and uncross her legs. She might run her hand along her thigh. She might adjust her position repeatedly, never quite settling. On the surface, it looks like she's uncomfortable or fidgety. But underneath, something else is happening. Women become acutely aware of their lower body when they're attracted to someone. It's not conscious. It's biological. Her body is registering that there's someone present that matters to her. And that awareness travels through her limbs. So the repositioning, the touching, the slight movements, they're all manifestations of that awareness. She's unconsciously trying to make sure her posture is attractive, that she's positioned in a way that presents her well. And here's something deeper. There's often a rhythmic quality to these movements when real attraction is present. It's not random fidgeting. There's an almost hypnotic quality to it, a kind of body language dance that happens below her conscious awareness. If you watch closely, you'll notice there's intention in it, even though she has no idea she's doing it. What's interesting is that this behavior is directly tied to confidence levels. A woman who's self-assured might do this in a more fluid, natural way. A woman who's nervous about showing interest might do it more hesitantly. But either way, the message is the same. She's aware of you. She's aware of herself. And there's something connecting those two pieces of awareness together. Let's move to something that happens in the face, something that's been studied extensively in research about attraction: her lips. Now, I want to be clear here. We're not talking about anything inappropriate. We're talking about how a woman interacts with her own lips, the micro behaviors that show up there. And there are quite a few. Some women bite their lips lightly when they're thinking about something or someone. Some women touch their lips to their coffee cup or water glass slowly, deliberately, when there's someone present who catches their interest. Some women simply run their tongue over their lips or press them together in a particular way. These are all ways the body expresses internal states that the mind hasn't necessarily verbalized yet. The lips are incredibly sensitive, incredibly expressive, and they're one of the first places where nervous energy shows up. Because the lips are tied to the mouth is tied to speech, and if there's something she wants to say but isn't saying, that energy has to go somewhere. Often, it goes right into these small lip-based gestures. When a woman really likes someone, there's often a heightened awareness of her mouth. She might reapply lipstick more frequently. She might press her lips together more often. She might touch them absently while talking to you. None of these things are about self-care or conscious beautification. They're about managing the energy that's building inside her. Her mouth has become a focal point of her nervous system's activity. And here's something important. If you notice her doing this and you respond by maintaining eye contact, by leaning in slightly, by showing genuine interest in what she's saying, it amplifies the effect. Because now she knows that you're paying attention. That changes everything. The area around her neck continues to show up in another way too. The collarbone, the necklace if she's wearing one. You've probably seen a woman play with a pendant on her necklace, or adjust the chain, or simply run her fingers across that area repeatedly. And you might have thought it was just nervousness or habit, but in the context of attraction psychology, it's something more specific. The collarbone area is right at the edge of intimate territory. It's the threshold between the public self and the private self. When a woman draws attention to this area repeatedly, especially when you're present, she's essentially inviting your gaze into that space. Not in a crude way. In a subtle, almost subconscious way. She's creating a visual pathway that leads from your eyes to her. What's happening psychologically is that she's using this gesture as a way to manage two competing desires. She wants to express interest, but she doesn't want to be too obvious about it. So she creates these small, deniable gestures. She can always say she was just adjusting her necklace. But in reality, she's doing something far more intentional. Jewelry in particular plays a specific role here. When a woman fidgets with jewelry rather than something else, it's often because it's something she can touch that's close to her skin, that's intimate in a way, but still innocent looking. It's a perfect medium for expressing nervous energy without raising any red flags. Hair is probably the most visible and the most often discussed of all these signals, but I want to talk about it in a way that goes deeper than surface level observation. Hair touching isn't just about styling, it's about attention direction. Every time a woman plays with her hair, touches her hair, fixes her hair, she's essentially pointing you toward her face, her eyes, her smile. But here's what's more interesting. When a woman genuinely likes someone, the hair touching increases in frequency and intensity compared to normal. She's not just fidgeting with her hair. She's actively engaging with it, repositioning it, tucking it, flipping it. And the more attracted she is, the more frequent and deliberate these movements become, even as she tries to make them look casual. There's also a grooming element to this that's worth understanding. When a woman is in the presence of someone she finds attractive, her whole body goes into a subtle grooming mode. She wants to look good. She wants to feel good. And her hair becomes one of the primary tools for managing that feeling. So the touching and adjusting and playing with her hair, it's actually her way of keeping herself feeling attractive while she's near you. And here's something that most guys miss entirely. The frequency of hair touching can actually tell you something about how comfortable she feels with you. Someone who's very nervous might touch their hair a lot, but in a tense, repetitive way. Someone who's comfortable and confident might touch their hair less frequently, but with more fluidity and naturalness. The body language is different depending on what's driving it. Her ears are something that often gets overlooked, but they're incredibly expressive in body language. You'll see women touch their ears, play with their earrings, or tuck their hair behind their ears repeatedly, especially in social settings. And like many of these gestures, it might look like nothing on the surface. But underneath, there's usually something happening. The ears are sensitive. They're close to the face. And drawing attention to them is a way of drawing attention to the face itself. When a woman repeatedly tucks her hair behind her ear, even when it wasn't really in the way, she's essentially giving you a clearer view of her face, her expressions, her features. It's a subtle beautification gesture that says, I want you to see me more clearly. There's also a self-soothing element here. When someone touches their ears or their earrings, it can be a way of calming their own nervous system. Think about how you might touch your chin or rub your jaw when you're thinking through something. She's doing something similar, but in a region of her body that's more socially acceptable to touch without raising questions. What's particularly interesting is when you see this behavior increase in frequency as a conversation progresses or as her comfort level with you deepens. The ear touching becomes more relaxed, more natural. She's not as worried about what it looks like because she's less focused on her own self-consciousness and more focused on the connection happening between you. Now, let's talk about something that's become incredibly relevant in modern dating: her phone. The relationship a woman has with her phone says a lot about her state of mind, especially when she's with someone she likes. And most men completely misread this signal. If a woman is genuinely uninterested in you, her phone usually becomes her best friend. She'll be scrolling, texting, completely absorbed. But if she likes you and is trying not to make it too obvious, her phone becomes something different. It becomes a psychological crutch. It becomes something for her hands to do while her mind is actually completely focused on you. Watch for this specific pattern. She keeps picking up her phone. She looks at it. She puts it back down. She picks it up again. But she's not really doing anything with it. She's not typing messages. She's not scrolling social media. She's just handling it, manipulating it, using it as an outlet for her nervous energy. That's a completely different signal from genuine disinterest. In fact, this behavior is so common among women who are interested but trying to play it cool that it's almost become a universal sign. She doesn't want to appear too eager. She doesn't want to give away that you're affecting her. So she gives her hands something to do that looks casual and innocent. Her phone is perfect for that purpose. And here's something subtle that happens sometimes. She'll look down at her phone, and something about her face will soften. She'll smile slightly. But she didn't just receive a message. The phone isn't why she smiled. She smiled because of something you said or something about your presence. The phone just happened to be the thing her eyes were directed at in that moment. Her mind was on you the whole time. There's also the inverse situation where she consciously puts her phone away or turns it off when she's with you. This is a strong signal. It says, you're more important to me right now than anything else. This entire device, full of connections and distractions, I'm setting it aside because I want to be present with you. That's not something a woman does unless she genuinely values the time you're spending together. When a woman has nothing to hold, when there's no phone and no other object for her hands to occupy themselves with, watch what she does. Her hands become incredibly expressive. She might start linking her fingers together. She might rub her hands. She might fidget with her nails or her cuticles. She might tap her fingers in a rhythm against her leg or the table. These hand movements are what psychologists call displacement activities. They're ways of managing internal energy, internal emotion, when there's no external outlet for it. And they become much more pronounced when there's attraction or nervousness present. It's not that she's cold or uncomfortable in the environmental sense. It's that her nervous system is active and her hands are searching for something to do with all that activation. What's interesting is that the type of hand movement can tell you something about her emotional state. Quick, nervous, repetitive movements usually indicate heightened anxiety or excitement. Slower, more deliberate movements usually indicate she's trying to calm herself, trying to appear more composed than she actually feels. Either way, something is happening inside her that's causing her to need this outlet. And here's something that's often overlooked. The way she uses her hands when she's talking to you can shift throughout the conversation. Early on, her hands might be more active as she's nervous and testing the waters. But as the conversation develops and she becomes more comfortable, her hands might settle more. Or they might become more expressive and natural. The progression matters because it tells you about her growing confidence with you. Now, I want to bring all of this together because there's something important to understand about what all these gestures really mean beyond just the individual behaviors. Every single signal we've talked about, the clothing adjustments, the neck touching, the leg repositioning, the lip movements, the collarbone focus, the hair manipulation, the ear touching, the phone handling, the hand movements, all of these point to one fundamental truth. A woman's body is far more honest than her words sometimes are. There's often a gap between what a woman says and what her body is communicating. And that gap exists because she's managing a balance between her genuine feelings and her caution about showing too much too soon. She might not want to seem too eager. She might be protecting herself. She might be unsure about your level of interest. So her body language becomes a more reliable indicator than her direct words. This doesn't mean you should ignore what she actually says. Of course not. But it means you should be paying attention to the whole picture. The combination of signals, the progression of behavior, the overall pattern. One gesture might mean nothing. Multiple gestures, a pattern of behaviors, a progression over time, that means something. What's also important to understand is that this isn't about manipulation or trying to decode some secret female language. This is about developing genuine awareness. This is about understanding that human communication is complex and layered. We rarely say exactly what we mean with our words, but our bodies are much more direct. Our bodies are much more honest. And for a man in his mature years, who spent decades navigating relationships and human interaction, this should actually make sense. You already know that communication is about more than words. You already know that presence matters. You already know that there's something real underneath the surface of most interactions. What we've done here is just given you a specific vocabulary for recognizing what's actually happening. When you're with a woman and you start noticing these signals, when you start paying attention to the pattern of her body language, something shifts. You become less anxious because you're actually gathering real information instead of just guessing. You become more confident because you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface. And you become more attractive because a man who pays attention, who truly sees another person, is fundamentally more appealing than a man who's just going through the motions. The key is not to become obsessive about any single gesture. One hair flip doesn't mean she's crazy about you. But when you see a woman adjusting her appearance when you're around, touching her neck when you speak, repositioning her body to face you more fully, handling her phone in that particular way that suggests she's managing nervous energy, touching her ears with increasing frequency as she becomes more comfortable, and doing all of this with a pattern of behavior that increases rather than decreases throughout your interaction, then you know something real is happening. And that's powerful information because it allows you to respond with genuine confidence. It allows you to lean in when the signals are there. It allows you to take your time and build something real when the signals suggest she wants you to. It takes the guesswork out of dating for men who are willing to pay attention. So the next time you're with a woman and something feels like there's unspoken communication happening, there probably is. And now you know what to look for. Now you know how to read what her body is actually saying. That's knowledge that will serve you well, not just in the romantic context, but in understanding human nature itself. Because women aren't mysterious. They're just human beings expressing their reality through the most honest language available to them, which is sometimes the language of their body.